The gentleman from New York, Mr. Torres, questioned Secretary Bessent about the independence of the Federal Reserve and whether the president has constitutional authority to remove the Federal Reserve chair or a member of its board of governors because of policy disagreements. Torres pressed Bessent on whether the unitary executive theory applies to the Federal Reserve and asked whether the administration considers the Fed an executive or legislative agency. Bessent repeatedly declined to offer a definitive legal opinion, saying the matter may ultimately have to be decided by the Supreme Court. He did, however, describe the Federal Reserve as an independent agency and emphasized the importance of maintaining its credibility.
What is your opinion?
I'm not a lawyer.
What is the administration's opinion?
There are varying opinions in the administration.
What's the prevailing opinion? The official opinion?
Again, we'll have to see.
Do you consider the Federal Reserve an executive agency or a legislative agency?
I consider it an independent agency.
So neither executive nor legislative?
So we'll see.
Therefore, independent of presidential control. So it sounds like you do have an opinion.
Again, we will see. We will see, Congressman.
Okay, thank you for establishing the independence of the Federal Reserve.
I do believe that the Federal Reserve has to maintain credibility and be like Caesar's wife, beyond reproach.
And undermining the independence of the Federal Reserve is a threat to that credibility. So I know you're no fan of the New York Times, but let me proceed. Let me reclaim my time. The Wall Street Journal, which is hardly a leftist publication, published an article with the following headline, quote, "Trump claims factory construction is up, contradicting U.S. data." The article then goes on to note, quote, "President Trump claimed that the U.S. factory construction is up by 41%, a number that doesn't appear to be supported by the government's own data." One of the stated policy objectives of the Trump tariffs is to bring back manufacturing jobs. Yet since the so-called Liberation Day tariffs of April 2025, we've seen the net loss of manufacturing jobs. Do you know how many net manufacturing jobs have been lost since April 2025 under your watch?
Well, a couple of things. Manufacturing operates with very long leads.
What's the number? Is there a number?
I believe it's about 67,000.
70,000.
Yes.
70,000 jobs lost.
So, but again,
despite the stated objective. Let me proceed. I'm going to reclaim my time.
Flip a switch.
I'm going to reclaim my time. Let me reclaim my time. The Purchasing Managers Index measures whether manufacturing is expanding or contracting. A PMI above 50 means expansion. Below 50 means contraction. Since the so-called Liberation Day tariffs of April 2025, has the PMI been mostly above 50 or below 50?
We just had the biggest increase in over a decade, and we are well above 50 now.
Has it been mostly above 50 since April 2025?
Again, long and variable lead times in manufacturing that you may represent.
Let me ask it differently.
Financial center, not a manufacturing.
Since April 2025, for how many months has the PMI been below 50?
Where are we now? Where are we now?
I'll give you, January went up. But what about April to December? It was below 50 for 9 consecutive months.
Where are we now?
So the score is 9-1. 9 months of manufacturing contraction versus 1 month of expansion.
I look forward to seeing you next year.
So one of the stated policy objectives.
And we'll keep score.
Yeah,
okay?
one of the stated policy objectives of the Trump tariffs is to bring back domestic production. Does the Trump administration regret imposing tariffs on goods that cannot be produced domestically at scale in the United States? Do you realize in hindsight that that was foolish?
Do you realize that we use the leverage to bring down tariffs from other countries to take down non-tariff barriers?
Tariffs on bananas gave you leverage?
Yes, with Colombia, with Brazil. Okay. I think, Congressman, you're being very naive with negotiating strategy.
We were promised reindustrialization. A tariff on bananas did not lead to domestic banana production. It simply made bananas more expensive for American businesses and consumers. The same is true of coffee.
Countries negotiating in a more fulsome manner.
Are you willing to commit to no longer imposing tariffs on any product that has neither a domestic substitute nor a national security rationale?
That would be the definition of foolish in a negotiation.
So you're not willing. You're willing to impose tariffs that make more expensive goods that we cannot domestically produce here in the United States,
again,
and that have no national. What is the national security nexus of bananas and coffee?
Again, why would you do that? That there are numerous things when you negotiate with Indonesia. There are things that are only made in Indonesia, but the Indonesians brought down their tariff barriers or non-tariff barriers.
I get it. We have to make bananas great again. I get it. Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Yep.
The gentleman from New York, Mr.
Torres argued that the Federal Reserve's independence is essential to maintaining confidence in the institution. He warned that political interference could undermine the Fed's credibility and stressed that the central bank must remain beyond reproach. The questioning then shifted to the Trump administration's tariffs and their impact on American manufacturing. Torres cited a Wall Street Journal report challenging President Trump's claim that U.S. factory construction had increased by 41%. He pointed out that manufacturing employment had declined since the so-called Liberation Day tariffs were introduced in April 2025. Torres asked Bessent how many manufacturing jobs had been lost during that period. Bessent estimated the number at roughly 67,000 to 70,000 jobs. Torres highlighted the figure as evidence that the administration's stated goal of bringing manufacturing jobs back to the United States had not yet been achieved. Torres then turned to the Purchasing Managers Index, or PMI, which measures whether the manufacturing sector. The exchange centered on two major issues: the independence of the Federal Reserve and the economic results of the administration's tariff policies. Torres pressed Bessent for clear answers on presidential authority over the Fed and highlighted losses in manufacturing employment as a challenge to the administration's economic claims. Bessent maintained that the Federal Reserve is an independent agency and argued that the manufacturing data must be viewed with consideration for the long lead times involved in the sector. The confrontation left a central question unresolved: whether the administration's tariff policies are actually delivering the manufacturing revival they promised.